For a free game that comes with the PlayStation 5, one largely designed just to showcase all the bells and whistles of Sony's next-gen DualSense controller, Astro's Playroom is surprisingly fun. This is a truly joyous homage to PlayStation history, as well as an experimental platformer I can only hope to see turned into a larger experience during the PS5's lifetime. Astro's literal playroom is, amusingly, the inside of your PlayStation 5 console, with its CPU Plaza hub offering you gateways to 4 main worlds. Each offers a unique approach to conveying sensation through the DualSense and features its own platforming hooks. All of it is fundamentally tied around the fun of using the DualSense controller. As the first real showcase, Astro's does a great job of showing how its haptic feedback allows players to feel things like the trudge of a character walking through mud, or the difference between being in water versus being on a grassy plain. And once you dive in, there's no shortage of joy that comes from how Team Asobi has translated in-game surfaces, objects, and movement into different DualSense sensations. Hail hitting my bot on the head causes little pops of rumble to strike all around the controller. The pull of a bow and arrow requires some added pressure on the trigger, coupled with a satisfying plunk of release as the arrow shoots out. But perhaps the aspect that best shows how developers can successfully elicit the feeling of swimming through water or pushing against a gust of wind is when Team Asobi combines multiple DualSense features to produce a result greater than the sum of its parts. The combinations can be something simple like running a finger up the touchpad slowly to zip Astro into a new suit, while the realistic sound of a zipper cinching up plays and the DualSense thumps depending on how slowly or quickly you zip. Yes, the haptic feedback plays a big part in all of this, like when raindrops start falling harder on Astro's head, and the pitter-patter tremble of your controller simultaneously grows. But it's the added hook of rain sounds emanating from the speaker that really made me think, oh no, I need to get out of this rain. The world-specific gameplay mechanics are where some of the studio's genius most lies, in mixing fun platforming curveballs with some of the DualSense's coolest sensations. My favorite of them is GPU Jungle's full robotic monkey suit, in which Astro scales upward by grabbing onto rock climbing handholds, which require you to alternatingly grab on with a trigger, representing one hand, physically turn the DualSense left or right to raise the other arm, and then grab a subsequent handhold. Broken up by cables the monkey can spin around and launch off of, some handholds necessitate you only squeeze the trigger slightly, or risk causing them to crumble and drop you to your doom, making this mechanic a real test of delicacy. Other suits have Astro hopping into a spaceship, which offers a nice balance of joyously zooming around and precise movement needed to survive. The frog suit, meanwhile, of Cooling Springs is an absolute treasure in its DualSense use, though the levels are not necessarily my favorites. The reproduction of a spring coil via haptics, the triggers, and the speaker is outstanding, but its mid-air sensitivity led to a few easy jumps being missed. And the final suit turns Astro into a ball in challenging but very familiar rolling ball puzzles I've played in plenty of other games. The only use of the DualSense that seemed superfluous to me was the microphone. I've seen uses like blowing into a mic to get an in-game fan to move since the days of the original Nintendo DS, so it doesn't necessarily bring anything all that fresh here, but at least it's used sparingly. Of course, it's worth mentioning that for many, simply holding the controller through all its intense rumbling and trigger resistance could be difficult or damaging, while others may not be able to hear what's coming through the speaker. The PS5 at a system level lets you shut off or adjust the DualSense's added feedback. And if you were to play without the feedback, Astro's Playroom is still a fun and at times challenging platformer with plenty to discover. The hidden puzzle pieces celebrate PlayStation console history all the way back to the original, while each of the main 4 worlds holds hidden artifacts belonging to the 4 respective eras of past PlayStation hardware. And don't worry, PSP and Vita fans, you aren't forgotten. As you're exploring Playroom's levels, you'll also stumble across Astrobots wearing a blue cap and holding a camera. That's the signal for a reference to a PlayStation game, and levels are littered with them. Much like with the hardware artifacts, every era of PlayStation is represented in some truly hilarious and heartwarming ways. While hunting for realistic depictions of PlayStation systems or spotting a robot wearing the costume of a beloved PlayStation mascot may stick out, it all feels of a piece with Astro's charming overall design. Running at a smooth 4K 60 frames per second, Astro's world may not be massive and require huge draw distances or populate the screen with hundreds of enemies, but it's certainly pretty. Natural environments come together with PS5 internal parts and other pieces of hardware cleverly blending the environment with the technological. Astro's Playroom surprised and delighted me. This PS5 pack-in most certainly hews closer to a technical showcase, essentially a loosely structured sandbox to mess around in and discover what the PS5 has to offer. But it has enough collectibles, creative ideas, and genuinely exciting uses of the DualSense that PS5 owners shouldn't brush this one aside in the launch lineup. After months and months of hearing how the DualSense would immerse me like never before, Astro's Playroom put promises into practice and impressively proved what's possible with the PS5's new controller. For more on Astro's Playroom, check out gameplay from the Cooling Springs level, and for everything else PS5, you're already in the right place, IGN.